Howdy folks, welcome to another Scannell Agenda show. This is the Scannell Agenda. My name is Stephen J.F. Scannell, and this is show number 80, entitled Saquatucket Snack Shack. And today's date is March 15th, 2018. Pam and I just had our third anniversary yesterday, and we had 3 lobsters today. And we wanted to have them on that storm, but our electricity was down. So we did it today for lunch. What a good time we had. Now, the Snack Shack idea is in the works in Harwich. So I wrote a letter to the Board of Selectmen in the town of Harwich, also the Board of Selectmen for town of Chatham. Also, I wrote a letter to Monomoy High School and also a letter to Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. And I'm just going to read the letter to the Harwich Board of Selectmen, which was the first one. Dear Harwich Board of Selectmen, attention Cape Cod Tech Culinary. The Snack Shack issue opens up questions regarding the highest and best use of the Downey property. If the theme for the area were of a blue economy nature, then perhaps a Marine Technologies Educational Program, MTEP, for our schools would be a good fit, with such as an Andrews River footlong shanty that I came up with. This, if structured properly, would fund various blue economy, in other words, fisheries, ecotourism, water systems, sanitation systems, all that stuff, okay? Blue economy. Kids research and development, et cetera, et cetera. Also, we could grow into a floating marine laboratory, FML, I call it. The intermediate school, which is now being used primarily for cultural use, could be used for these initiatives, and they do overlap, I believe. Monomoy students with both Chatham and Harwich as their partners could run a fine little footlong shanty, just like P-Town. Stephen J. F. Scannell, the Scannell Agenda. Now, I did mention Monomoy because it's in the town of Harwich. You know, Harwich and Chatham want to pick it up and do this. They could, or the different towns could all get together through the Cape Cod Tech, along with some of the other high schools, and Monomoy and Nauset and DY and Barn. You know, it can be done so many different ways. But the Snack Shack is right on Saquatucket. So that's not too far from Chatham, but it's right in Harwich. All right, and my letter to Chatham Board of Selectmen. Attention, Board of Selectmen, Monomoy High School Tech. I'm pushing an idea for the kids to run a footlong shanty down at Saquatucket. That's just what I call it, footlong. Because I think if we think about who runs the best little snack shack on the Cape, it's probably right there in P-Town. Right down by McMillan Wharf. You know, there was 2 footlong hot dog places there. And they would sell you some fried clams or a footlong hot dog or onion rings. And boy, they've been doing it for years. And really, they have it down, you know. They have it down. So it's kind of famous too, footlong hot dogs from Provincetown. Going with this idea for the footlong shanty is a Marine Technology Educational Program. Please consider this and know I would be happy to brainstorm the concept. Steve Scannell. Okay. And let's see. That's the Chatham Board of Selectmen. To the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. Please refer to my letter to the Harwich Board of Selectmen. I hope you like the concept of the students in charge of a foot-long shanty down by Saquatucket Harbor. I think it's a good idea. I'm available to brainstorm, and it's got all my contact information. So, dear Monomoy High School, I would like to address your appropriate committee if you like the idea of the students running a foot-long shanty down at Saquatucket. I have this idea attached to the Marine Technology Educational Program. Okay, that's the groundwork on that. I have been working on the Marine Technology Educational Program idea because it just so happens to dovetail with the rough research and development that I do for all kinds of things. Fisheries, aquaculture, artificial reefs, you know, that kind of thing. And I used to work at the Marine Laboratory, so I'm pushing this idea for the floating marine laboratories as being the top shelf, something to really aim for. So this foot-long, and I call it the Andrews River, AR foot-long shanty. And I have it down by the Andrews River where the maintenance building is down there. But that's just because I didn't know what was what on the issue at all. Sometimes it's better if you start with a clean slate, so that's what I was starting with, misinformation. But the snack shack is designed to be up front, right on the harbor, right on the marina. But I had in mind digging out the Andrews River way up a couple hundred yards north of 28, and then buying some property for parking and other purposes. As you know, I mentioned Harwich could have bought two of the point parcels at Saquatucket Channel, but we didn't. $30,000 each was too much money. Oh, Dad got so ticked off. I don't blame him. But anyway, he also had stipulated in there a walk around the marsh to get out there. Well, that didn't happen either, obviously. So, with the Marine Technologies program, you would want to have several people in on that would be really, really super qualified. Let's say your hatchery people, your Division of Marine Fisheries, of course, all your town departments on the Cape and islands, with your shellfish departments, all those people, kind of getting in there. Now, the thing of it is to have a little vision and then to grow into the ultimate, which is having your floating marine laboratories. And now we're talking about industrial-based fishery management. So I have to say right from the outset, if we don't have a cash flow in fisheries, this seems kind of nutty. All this talk about, marine technologies. I think we had a program at the tech school that fizzled about, it was a fishing program. And to be honest with you, I don't know why we don't get it here on the Cape, but if your kids can't get out of high school and actually become a fisherman, why would they want to get into a fishing program in high school to study fishing for what? To be on somebody's back deck and not to have the right to be a fisherman. So I think this is all, this history that we have of picking and choosing the fishermen, and these are the fishermen, and they have a permit, and if you want to be a fisherman, well, either you fork over the big money to buy these permits, or you have to change the system. If you're a kid, you could probably get together with the rest of the kids in the country and say, future fishermen of America here, we're changing these systems because it's futile. It's a futile system. We can't fit into it. All right, so the cash flows are important, but basically the foundation, though, is for fisheries management to fundamentally change so that the kids can fit in if they want to, which they can't right now. They can't, because everything's ruined and there's no fish. The habitat's totally ruined and the stocks are ruined. So it's really hard to fit into that. And this all has been going on for decades and decades, all this decline. So let's talk about cash flows for the Marine Technologies Educational Program. This wouldn't just be for high schools, it would be for your middle schools, your elementary schools, even your little toddlers, your tourists, your colleges and universities. It would be something everyone could basically plug into. Now the basis and the basics of the sea farm or the market quota system or pick your own strawberries would have to be a foundation. I don't think you're going to do well without some kind of a solid foundation, and we don't have that. We don't have the sea farm system, the market quota system, a pick your own strawberries form of asset management in fisheries. You know, we don't really have public resource management. But that fits in as a real foundation. Now, if we want to go there, then we can go here to these things that I'm tying the footlong shanty to. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's kind of cheesy. You know, here, this is the ocean, this is a hook, this is a lobster pot. You don't get to use either one unless you buy the rights. You know, that's no good. All right, sail program with a captain's course. This is what we're looking at. We're looking at all the school budgets chipping in for Marine Technologies Educational Program, which will go from K to 12. And then this program for the Cape and Islands and general vicinity will also go to an accelerated associate's degree, arts, science, depending on what direction, what general direction suits you. So if you're going for the associate in science, then you would have an environmental science degree based on marine technologies, let's say. Or if you're going with the arts degree, you'd have a marine tourism, marine-based tourism, that kind of thing. It might, I don't know, it might fit in there. Or you could be a dual major and be a smart guy that's going to MIT or a smart girl that's going to Harvard to study public resource management, or to go to URI. URI used to be top shelf. That's where I wanted to go when I was in high school. That was my number one pick. But too much smoke in the grass, got in trouble, never got there. So let's just say in starting in middle school, that there would be special coursework for your marine technology educational program, where you could earn these little certificates, which might be a prerequisite for going a little deeper. So then you'd have different levels, as we had when I was a kid in the 6th grade in Harwich intermediate school. You'd have AA class, A class, B class, C class, and then special class. So I would recommend just basically copying that for different levels. And you do want to be inclusive of everybody. So the ultimate would be to graduate from high school also with the associate's degree. You'd be graduating with a dual degree that year, let's say. Graduate with your high school diploma, and then you drive over to the graduation of Cape Cod Community College, and you will have amassed enough credits for your associate's degree. So you'd be leaving high school with an associate's, and some kids could do it with a dual major in the Marine Technologies Educational Program. You'd be working with Mass Maritime to get some sea time perhaps, but all the high schools would be into it. And I'm saying the seed wants to be planted right here at Saquatucket Harbor, which is where I grew up. I grew up right there. across the street from Brack's. So when I'm talking about Andrews River, I had intimate knowledge of Andrews River growing up, and the what they call Cold Brook now. Growing up, there's two forks of that one river, Andrews River. The one has its headwaters, I believe, way up in Bucks Pond area, John Joseph Pond. And I've always thought, and I've got written up, that all these rivers need to be perfected for the herring, for canoeing, for tourism, for real estate values, if nothing else, and also for just basically for the good of the environment, to do some environmental engineering. These waterways are just a real sleeper. We leave them alone, whereas actually we want to be looking in the future toward re-engineering all these waterways on the Cape. Now, of course, the herring run situation, I did a show on that a while back. We want public aquaculture of the herring runs. And there used to be some herring in this little Andrews River, which runs under Route 28, and it's all covered. You'd hardly know it was there. But there used to always be some herring that would come up in there, not many, and they would go up towards Blackie's Pond, we called it, and which isn't actually a pond now. It's all dried up. They've pulled the plug on a lot of these bogs and dams, etc. So Monomoy High School, Nauset High School, D.Y. Barnstable High School, Falmouth High, all the high schools, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, would want to be having their participation in this so that it can be worked up and then duplicated. And then once we start ramping it up, MIT will be invited in, University of Rhode Island. These are all higher level institutions, obviously UMass Dartmouth, University of New Hampshire. And they have carved out niches, all of these, University of Maine, of which they will want to put on display at Saquatucket. And it really wouldn't cost a lot of money to have your first floating marine laboratory out at sea, mile and a half out to sea, let's say. So basically you need some tankage for a floating marine laboratory. Doesn't have to be anything fancy for your first one. You're just working on the concepts. There's a lot of advantages to a land-based marine laboratory. For instance, our marine laboratory on Nantucket had a lot of limitations because it was land-based. And I'm thinking the Aquacultural Research Corporation over there on the Bayside, that's got some limitations. It's kind of a backwater, so it's got some limitations, but these floating marine labs don't have those limitations that you don't want to have. You don't want to be limited on your ability to pump water efficiently and good clean water, pumping that efficiently. And it's not like these are, in the old days we had the light ships, and the old light ships could take a pounding if they were such that they were out at sea, like the Nantucket light ship. But the light ships that were inshore, there were all kinds of these inshore light ships. I think there was one for Handkerchief and one for Stone Horse, and these kind of interior light ships didn't really take much of a beating inside, let's say, in Nantucket Sound. The ones that really got hammered were the ones that were exposed to the Atlantic. And so that would be down the road that we would have these big floating marine laboratories. But you don't start there. You start small and work your way up. Speaking of starting small, I know that Harbor Master Tom Leach started, and Donald Ryder were big with the upweller system down at Witchmere Harbor. So that's your first basic Harwich Marine Laboratory right there. And you can almost do a hatchery in your kitchen sink. You can actually do that. You can bring the scallops, the sperm and the eggs together and mix them up and So it's just a matter of scale. Now, so for the cash flows, the floating marine laboratories would necessarily include some housing, some bunks. So that's an income, let's say. The income from MIT, URI, UMass, these are all educational industries that would be locating down here in Harwich. As far as corporate sponsors, I'm not sure how to structure that, but if you put it out there and had reasonable 501c3s that a business could partner with and get into this, that would be the ticket too, but I don't know how to do that. I'm sure I could come up with ideas, but corporate sponsorship, working with the universities, working with the schools, and in particular project-centered, that might be good. So the cash flow is, to me, a baseline of common sense that you have to have in fisheries to go the next level of marine technologies educational program. At least we should be fighting for that simultaneously as we set it up. And really we should be cognizant, as they say, that our fishery system is broken. And I recently saw I wish I had brought my notes on that. Oh, never mind. It was a sort of an expose that didn't work for me about some fishermen down in, I think it was Stonington, Connecticut, I'm not sure. And they were painting the picture of, they had the violin out, the fishermen were being hurt, which is true, but it's not the whole picture. With the this horrendous system of monitoring of fishermen, at sea monitoring. I hated it when we had these guys on the boat. Oh, I hated that. I just did. I don't know. I couldn't warm up to that, because I've always said that we can have cameras, basically, that do the work that these people are doing. And you train your commercial fishermen to work with the scientists, and oh, believe me, they can easily do this. I could do this. You photograph the basically what's going on in the pilot house in real time. Where are you, and what are you bringing on board, and how long was your tow? Okay. And then what you got, so there's your survey work is going on right then and there in real time by commercial fishermen. There's a lot of money wasted in fisheries, National Marine Fisheries Service survey work, and all these ridiculous observers. I just find it to be crazy. So we need to brainstorm on this fishery thing, because with no cash flow, think about this, nothing changes, right? We don't have a cash flow system in fisheries, and we don't do what I advocate that we do, which is asset-based fishery management. The main asset is your habitat stocks, which overlap, and then your infrastructure of all sorts. Could be hatchery, could be the Marine Technologies Educational Program. But it's all the infrastructure that goes with Mother Nature, basically. So if we have no money, let's say we don't have a real system. We have no cash flow, no money. It's like a pick-your-own-strawberries farm that you don't have to pay to go to. And no one's running the farm either. It's just like, what? How does this work? It doesn't. So it's like having a bank with no depositors who have no money anyway, and they don't give out loans. And what's your bank do? It doesn't do anything. So we have all this wealth in the ocean, so to speak. We're not doing anything with it. It doesn't work. the way it's kind of nuts. And the thing that's really nuts is the preeminent attitude of the public. The public attitude is nuts, and that is, what do the fishermen want to do? You want to defer to the fishermen. And I've been saying on this show, the fishermen know what to do for their own asset base, but not so much, generally speaking. I'm the exception. There's a lot of exceptions out there, but I'm one of the big exceptions. Fishermen don't know how to do public resource management, just not in their playbook of skills. You know, like a football team has different squads. You know, you would think that all this stuff would be, oh, geez, fishermen know how to do this, 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 and they're in it, and they go to these. No, it's not true. So, with the Marine Technologies Educational Program that is attached to the Saquatucket Snack Shack, or the Andrews River foot-long shanty with a nicely dug out Andrews River, you know, a park surroundings. You got to buy 2 or 3 properties around there to make it work, or 4 or 5 properties. Get some state and federal help. And then you need your floating marine laboratory out there to really make it click. But you'd have different areas for little different displays, and fishermen giving talks, and kids giving talks, and presentations, and all this sort of stuff. So, I think there'd be nothing you could do that would be better for the Monomoy High School and the Cape Cod Tech, and also the other schools. But we got to go to a pick-your-own-strawberries system, basically, in fisheries for this to work. 1 minute, gotcha. So, show's wrapping up. And just think about pick-your-own-strawberries. You could run the pick-your-own-strawberries farm. Let's say you bought that golfing range down in East Ham, and you were growing strawberries, and you would have this and that. You could make a go of it, because you would have a cash flow. But we don't have a cash flow in the fisheries. But we're gonna, if I have anything to say about it, and we're gonna do these kinds of projects. And we won't be importing so much of the seafood. Well, that's it for the Scannell Agenda. Thanks for watching.